think I had the huge advantage of starting when I was young, or younger. I started when I was at university, and I think the advantage that gives you is that you can take risks that you can't take later on in life. I had no responsibility at all. So I think, you know, I was a little bit overconfident in a way. I think you need confidence to set out on your own, and I thought I could do everything. And I think in reality, nobody can do everything. And I think the more you listen to people who know what they're talking about, the better. I think I was very lucky in that I actually spent 2 years with Bain & Co doing management consultancy before I went into the business full time. I was still running it as a hobby. But I was always, you know, I was a bit like a bull in a china shop, so I'd go in and I'd just do it. I'd think, just do it. And I met a guy at Bain who was he was a much more disciplined manager. And effectively, we worked together in the same room in the end for 15 years. And what I did, I think, is I suppose if I'd run the business on my own, we'd have gone bust quite quickly but grown quite fast. And if he'd run the business on his own, we'd still be a very small business and not really having grown. So I think we worked very well together, where you have somebody who's prepared to take the risk, but somebody on the other side of the fence who's prepared to understand the effects of that and in a way to mop up after me. And I think it's very difficult to get one person having both those skills. And that's why it often works having two people in a business growing it together, because they have those complementary skills. I think, you know, when I first started, I answered the phones, you know, did everything in the business, and you suddenly you get to realize as people come in to the business, they answer the phone, they're actually better at answering the phones than I am. They're better at packing than I am, they were better at marketing, better at finance. And you suddenly realize as an entrepreneur, you're tend to be a bit of a jack of all trades, because you can sort of do everything at the beginning and you muck in. But you're not very good at doing anything in particular. And so if it goes well, what you end up with is effectively you don't have a job, because everybody is doing things better than you do. And what you're there for is to give the clarity of vision. So everybody knows where they're going, how they're going to get there. And I think as the entrepreneur, you just let them get on with it, because only one person can do each job, and they certainly can't do it if you're breathing over their shoulder. My wife runs, or has a mail order business, the White Company. And it's interesting because, you know, we both started our own businesses, which is quite rare. And I look at what the similarities are between us. And I think there's a few simple similarities. In many ways, we're very different. But fundamentally, we both love the business. We love our businesses. And I think that is the most important thing. You know, I've loved every day of the last 24 years, as I think she has done for the last 18 years, whatever she's been, you know, since we've been doing the White Company. So I think it's having a passion for the business. I think we're actually very different in terms of what we do within the business. She's much more creative, and I love the mechanics of the business, of making the marketing work and the merchandising work and the finance work. She hates all that. She just wants to make the product look beautiful. And she has a real passion for that, and I have a real passion for what I do. So I think that's, you know, the similarity is having a passion and a sort of, if you have a passion and you love the business, you work hard at it. And I think that's important. I think it's extremely hard to find good people. Or maybe it's extremely hard to find people who will fit into the culture of your business. Every business is different, and one person who does fantastically in one business, quite often they'll do terribly in another. So it is very hard. And I think over the years, I've certainly made a load of mistakes in bringing people into the business. But I think if you make a mistake, you have to realize you made a mistake, you agree to differ, and you move on. And over time, and I think it's the great thing about experience, is you do get a bit better at it. You get better at understanding, you know, your hunches tend to be better. And you get to understand that in an interview, people can often be very different to what they're like actually in the job. And you might start just taking references rather more thoroughly than you do at the beginning, because you think, You get it. If you get on well with someone, there's a tendency at the beginning. I always just sort of give them a job. It's a nice bloke, give them a job. And actually, that's wrong. You need to be. You cannot be too thorough when you're bringing people into the business, because if you get the wrong person, as I did in 2005, it put the business back 4 years. We stood still for 4 years, and to be honest, or 3 years, very nearly went bust. So you cannot be too thorough, and it's fundamental. It's the difference between success and failure.